What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters. Welcome to Life to Metal. Going to be doing What's Spinning today. Just a bunch of records that I've been listening to, a few CDs. I'm going to get right into them right away. The album that's going to be spinning in the background through most of this video is honestly one that I've been spinning non-stop. I'm really digging this record, but this is the new MADROST. This is Charring the Rotting Earth, progressive thrash metal. So am I touting my own label? I guess I am, because this is on my label, but these guys need to be on a bigger label. These guys should be on, you know, a Nuclear Blast or Central Media or something like that, because they're just freaking awesome. Young dudes in this band playing fantastic progressive thrash metal. So if you're into bands like, you know, the progressive side of Voivod, or if you're into Vector or Coroner, Believer, that kind of thing, MADROST are right in that range. They do push a little bit towards the more extreme side of thrash metal, even pushing towards death metal. Never really, I don't know, they never really crossed into death metal, though there are a few blast beats here and there, but it's all over the spectrum when it comes to metal. There's melodic parts, there's symphonic parts. It's just fantastic. So non-stop I've been listening to it. So anyhow, that's what's spinning in the background. Then also, this is a cool box that I picked up. This is Rush, the Spirit of the Radio Live 1974 to 1980. And I'll get into the discs real quick. So disc 1 is Agora Ballroom, August 24th, 74. Then we've got the Electric Ladyland Studios, New York, 1974, December 1974. This is the Agora Ballroom, Cleveland, December 16th, 1974. And then we've got the Agora Ballroom, Cleveland, Ohio, 1975. And then the Kiel Auditorium, St. Louis, Missouri, 1980. And then the Pig Pop Festival in the Netherlands in 1979. So these are all radio broadcasts, and so the sound quality on all of them are pretty good. I mean, some of them are better than others, in my opinion. I listened to the 79 show first because I love that era, and the sound quality on that one was fantastic. I listened to the 1980 show after that, and the sound quality was still good, but it wasn't quite as good as the 79 one, in my opinion. Regardless, a very cool box set from Rush. And I don't know if that's an official release or not, but I don't really care at this point. Alright, so going along right with MADROST, they just had got me into the mood to hear some of that more extreme melodic style stuff, so I pulled out from Canada, Beyond Creation. These guys are a band I discovered maybe a couple years ago, maybe 3 years max. And when I get on the mood for this kind of stuff, man, I just can't get enough of it. I believe they have 3 albums out. This is the last album they put out, which I think was, what, 2019? 2018, so it's been a while since they're due for another one, hopefully. But yeah, this is pushing more to, this is death metal, but it's melodic death metal, and the bass player in this band, it really brings something. You know how Steve Harris kind of brings something special to Maiden because of his bass sound, or you know, Lemmy being the backbone of Motorhead. There's something special about the bass player in this band too. It's just really fantastic stuff. Beyond Creation. My friend Darren, he's the guy who I owe gratitude to for introducing me to these guys, because I really dig them. So Beyond Creation, this one's called ALGORYTHM, and I believe this is their, like I said, I believe this is their 3rd album. Next up, some new wave of British heavy metal. This stuff's all over the map. So. CLOVEN HOOF, the very first album. This they were a little late on the scene, I believe, because I think this album came out in maybe 83, 84. A lot of the, you know, what they consider new wave British heavy metal came out 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. Kind of you're pushing more outside of what was considered new at the time, but regardless, I consider them a new wave British heavy metal band. So great band, CLOVEN HOOF. These guys are still kicking. George Call singing for them. George Call's one of my favorite vocalists, modern vocalists. So German thrash. This is Grinder. Fun, oddly enough, I showed this in a video not too long ago, because this is a fairly new acquisition to my collection, thanks to my dear friend from Germany. anyhow, he hooked me up with this, and I just hadn't heard it. And he gave me 2 Grinder records on vinyl, and I own the other one on CD, so I had to hear this one first because I actually never owned this album, never heard it, and this is just great stuff. So originally released in 1988, a highlight in German speed thrash metal that will appeal to fans of Exhumer, Paradox, and Blind Guardian. Totally in your face and catchy as hell from the golden era of German metal. Indeed, great stuff. You kind of see the young guys in the back there with the 80s thrash look. So you got your high top white shoes on there, and I find it amusing that, you know, some of the newer thrash bands that are around, they're all wearing the white high top shoes. I don't think white high tops was unique to thrash metal. I think everybody was wearing white high top sneakers at the time. And it's funny because some of the big, you know, the big 4 bands like Megadeth and Metallica and whatnot talk about, you know, they were wearing the high tops. Well, the reason they were wearing them was because they couldn't afford anything, man. But when they signed their record contracts, they like gave them shoes. I remember Dave Mustaine saying, you know, he's like, yeah, you look at our pictures back then, we all had these brand new white high tops on. He goes, we were all broke, and they gave us shoes, so of course we wore them. So yeah, everybody wore, you know, high top shoes back then in the 80s. That was just a thing. So all right, continuing new wave of British heavy metal. This is VARDIS, the lion's share. This is kind of a compilation. Just one I hadn't spun in a while, so I pulled it out and gave it a spin. Love the cover shot in the front. That's very rock and roll right there. I dig that. So yeah, just a you know, a spattering of VARDIS, and a band that I fairly new to in the last decade. This is one of the bands I did not know back in the 80s. I discovered them way late, but regardless, a band I dig now. So I love the song on here, Police Patrol, with the bagpipes on it. And there's something about mixing bagpipes with heavy metal that's just, you know, cool. AC/DC did it, and there's a punk band called Crash Dog that has this really cool song that has bagpipes in it. Just, I don't know, I kind of dig the mixture. So yeah, there you go. Great live photo on the back too. VARDIS. VARDIS kind of, you know, they're not extreme. They're not like Venom or Raven or you know, some of those new wave of British heavy metal bands that are kind of pushing, or even Iron Maiden. They're more along the harder rock side of new wave of British heavy metal. You know, inspired by the likes of, you know, AC/DC. Not that they're an AC/DC clone by any stretch of the imagination, but that's kind of the vibe that I get from them. All right, well, it's just in the mood for some Overkill, and I pulled out last year's The Wings of War and gave it another fresh spin, and just as good as I remembered it, it made my top 20 for last year. And I'm just a big Overkill geek, as you all know, one of my favorite bands since the 80s, and very good album from them. There's just not a bad song on here, really. I mean, some of the stuff is just really hooky too. And the stuff like Batshit Crazy, Distortion, I always loved Blitz's voice, which there's Bobby Blitz right there. So anyhow, very good album from them if you're into that. This is a band, or I guess a musician I listen to a lot. Literally been a fan since I was a kid. I've done collection videos on this guy, but this is Ted Nugent's Scream Dream. I do belong to a few vinyl groups online, and one of them is called Heavy Metal Vinyl, and I post stuff there as well, you know, just stuff I'm listening to. So if you follow me on YouTube, on Facebook at all, I do post a lot of my records that I listen to there as well. But this one caused a bit of a stir over there. Just all I do is post it, like I do any of my records, and people having a cow about politics and other garbage. I don't really care about your politics or what you think of the man personally. I dig the music, and I like this record, so there you go. Yeah, this one was autographed when I met him in '07, so. Wango Tango, this is an obnoxious record. I remember Tony Lee, Heathen's Rage, and myself, we were friends, and right around the same time, it was this one and Kiss, Creatures of the Night. I can remember just hanging out at my place and cranking those 2 records all the way through, just hanging out. I mean, back then that's what we did. You know, we didn't even really talk all that much. You just sat there, and we didn't have cell phones and computers and all that other garbage, and so you just sat there, hung out, and kicked back and listened to music. And I just specifically remember listening to this album, Creatures of the Night, with him, and just a good memory and a great album. Not a bad song on here either. Wango Tango, Scream Dream, Hard as Nails, a little stuffy, sorry. I Gotta Move, Violent Love, Flesh and Blood, Spit It Out, Come and Get It, Terminus, El Dorado, Terminus, El Dorado. Anyhow, don't cry, I'll be back in a minute. Don't cry, I'll be back before you know it, babe. Yeah, Nugent. Back to the new wave of British heavy metal. Although this is not from that era, but Diamond Head. This is a great album, man. It doesn't sound quite like classic Diamond Head, which why would you expect them to? This is 2019. Why would you expect them to sound like they did in 1983? You wouldn't. But they're still playing the same sort of music. There's only one original member left, of course, in the band, so that's a big deal when it comes to this band. Let's see if I can find the photo of the band in here. I'm pretty sure there was one. Maybe not. Nope. In any case, I'm trying to remember the name of the new vocalist. So Brian Tatler, of course, is the guitar player in the band, and he's the main, the main man behind the band. But on the vocals, you have new vocalist Rasmus van Andersen. So he, it gives the band a different vibe. Any band that's got a classic, charismatic vocalist like Diamond Head did, when you replace him, you're going to have a different sound. But does that mean it's bad? Heck no. It's actually a really good album. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's made my top list for 2020 as well, as I recall, and with good reason. It's a very good traditional heavy metal album. He didn't try and reinvent the wheel here. He didn't try and mix a bunch of different styles together and try to become current. And I hear some friends I have, and I know in bands that have been around since the 80s and 90s, and they're like, well, we want to move forward and play modern music. And I'm like, well, that's nice, but the fans of your old records aren't interested in you playing a different style of music. They're interested in playing heavy metal. Well, that's what you got with Diamond Head. They're continuing to play heavy metal. They're not trying to sound like the old stuff, but they're continuing in the same, style of music. They're not trying to play alternative or pop or radio rock and that kind of thing. So, anyhow, Diamond Head, The Coffin Train, 2019. This sounds great. This next one. HIRAX. This is their live album, Thrash and Destroy. This is live, warts and all, and I love it. There's just something very, again, I'm going to use the word charismatic about it. It's all about violence and just that whole 80s vibe of thrash. But this was recorded in 2007. But during the song, okay, listen to the song title. So you got Hate, Fear, Power, and Hostile Territory, and these kind of things. Right in the middle of, I'm trying to remember what the song was right in the middle of. It might have been Hostile Territory. Destroy, Broken Neck, Bombs of Death, El Diablo Negro, Barrage of Noise, Walk with Death, Assassins of War. I'm pretty sure it was Hostile Territory. So right in the middle of Hostile Territory, a couple people in the audience must have started fighting. And Kate DePena, vocalist of the band, he stops the band right in the middle of the song, and he's like, no fighting, no violence. It's hilarious because what's a song called Hostile Territory, and the songs are all about violence and all that kind of stuff. But he's like, no, there'll be no fighting here. He goes, you want to fight, you fight with your words. He goes, you want to fight over whether who you like better, Motorhead or Metallica, and he listed a bunch of different bands. Anyhow, it's fantastic, live, warts and all. I also love the intro to the El Diablo de los Muertos intro, because they had this guy come out and he's this very hoarse, really excited guy about introducing HIRAX, and there's some real thrash metal, HIRAX, and he's just screaming, and then the intro comes on, and it's this like mellow acoustic, almost classical sounding thing. It's very funny to me, but I love it. It's great. It's a double album set. It's also available on DVD and CD. Great live album if you don't own it and you dig HIRAX. Oddly enough, that was during the Glenn Rogers era, but for whatever reason, he was out of the band for a short spell, and that was recorded while Glenn wasn't in the band. So, and speaking of HIRAX, this is early HIRAX, as well as the band LA Chaos. This is Caton's early stuff, demos and whatnot. Surprisingly, the sound quality is pretty darn good. You can do a lot of things these days with remastering and really take recordings that were poor and bring things out that you couldn't hear before, and I think that's what they've done here. This sounds fantastic. Born in the Streets, 1983, 1984. It also has a really cool booklet in it. I'm not going to pull all that out because I'm just going to get into the records today. It's got like a magazine, old like zine style magazine inside of it with photos of the band and old flyers and that kind of thing. Really cool release if you can find this thing. It is on FOAD Records. www.scarystore.com. Scarystore.com. That's the address on the back. More thrash metal. Another one from 2019. I was revisiting a bunch of stuff from last year. XENTRIX, however you want to say it. UK thrash metal. This sounds very UK thrash metal to me. I mean, I'm listening to this and I'm hearing bands like Acid Rain, and I definitely was hearing Detritus in this. So yeah, this is a great record. Again, this one I can't remember. I don't think this one made my list because I think I didn't get it until shortly after the year was over. But regardless, this is a great record from them. Really good comeback album. So listenable records from 2019. XENTRIX, Bury the Pain. All right, now this next band, I've been in a kick on them big time because I'm reading Martin Popoff's book on the early years of Riot. So yeah, I've been really getting into some Riot again. Riot are one of those bands I get into kicks and I'll just start really tearing into them. One of the American band from New York around the mid to late 70s, and put their first album out, 78 on Capitol Records. Capitol didn't care anything about this band. Finally, they got on. They ended up getting on Elektra, and this is their third album. Elektra put a little bit into them, so there was a singles released. These guys are playing huge festivals, and they're kind of there was a few bands that weren't from the UK that were kind of like honorary new wave or British heavy metal bands. And you read in any book about that era, you're going to hear about bands like Riot and Twisted Sister, because those bands are out there and touring and doing that thing at that time. But anyhow, they kind of have that same vibe, you know. They were playing metal when metal was considered a dead art form in 1978 and 1979. And you're like, how can metal be dead in 78, 79? Well, the media at the time, magazines and whatever, radio were claiming it was dead. And a lot of the bigger bands, like Kiss, were losing their sound. You know, they were, Kiss did a disco song at that point. Bands like Aerosmith were falling apart. Not Van Halen kind of helped resurrect it in the U.S., but very much of a different style than what Riot was doing, which was more, rooted in that kind of late 70s, early 80s heavy metal. But yeah, this is just not a bad song on here. Of course, Swords of Tequila, the big track on this album that still I hear on the radio these days. But I think the standout track really on this album is Outlaw. That's just a killer song, and I believe it was a single for the record. So why Swords of Tequila became a more well-known song than Outlaw, I don't know. But regardless, Mark Reale, Rick Van Turn, and then of course Guy Speranza. This would have been his last album with them. Riot. And of course, going right along with that one, this is one of the recent releases. I think this is volume 1 of 4. I think I have 1 and 2. I don't have 3 and 4 yet on vinyl. But these were released on High Roller Records, and this is like just a compilation of early material stuff, demos and singles and stuff that wasn't available on the actual albums. So you've got a 2-record set. This one's labeled 76 through 81. So this is all, again, same. Well, the lineup kind of moved around a lot back then, but it was, Rick Ventura didn't actually join the band till this album. Same with Sandy Slavin, who, of course, is the drummer who also became known as Riot's drummer, the classic lineup. But he didn't play on those first 2 albums and a lot of his early stuff. But of course, you had Guy Speranza, who was the classic vocalist at the time, and of course Mark Reale, who was and is Riot until he passed away a few years ago, which is why I have Riot 5 now. Alright. Keep it on. Might as well go with this one here. I guess I was in a new wave of British heavy metal band kick. I don't know. Actually, this one was inspired by a friend of mine. His name is Daniel, and the band Veil of Deception out of Austria. He posted this album on Facebook, and he's like, I don't know why people don't like this album. I love this album, and it's one of my favorites. And of course, immediately he got attacked as this album's a piece of crap. And I like this album. I've always liked this album. So you've got the young Eve on the cover, taking a bite of the apple with the Saxon logo on it. Innocence, There's No Excuse. It's the name of the album. And then you've got a bunch of smaller photos around the bottom of this so-called innocent girl not being so innocent. And a couple of these photos, I believe this photo here ended up being like a 7-inch single cover photo. But regardless, so you've got Rockin' Again, Call of the Wild, Back in the Streets, Devil Rides Out, Rock and Roll Gypsy, Gypsy spelled Gipsy, and, you know, Broken Heroes, Gonna Shout, Everybody Up, Race Some Hell, and Give it everything you've got. I don't know. This sounds like classic Saxon to me. It does have a little more melody to it. I think it's probably just more so the recording than anything else. But I mean, if you like classic Saxon, I don't understand why you wouldn't dig this album. Yeah, Saxon did move into more, I don't know, clean, not progressive, more clean, radio-friendly sound with, you know, following albums. And that album could have been like a crossover into that more sound, but I still dig it, so whatever. All right, oddly enough, this is Joe Perry Project. If you've watched Metal Theologian's recent video, I sent him a copy of this record for the second time. I love this record, man. It's one of my all-time favorites. It came out in 1980. A lot of these songs were written and could have been on the next Aerosmith record. Instead, Joe Perry parted ways with Aerosmith, and we got the Joe Perry Project. This is great, straightforward hard rock. I mean, back in 1980, I considered it heavy metal. You know, these days people will argue until they're blue in the face that it's not. I don't really give a crap. It's just good, heavy rock music with great guitar work from Joe Perry, very memorable songs. And I'll commit blasphemy here to many Aerosmith fans, but the version of Let the Music Do the Talking on here is the best version. I like the version Aerosmith did on Done With Mirrors, but this version is just awesome. So you got Let the Music Do the Talking, Conflict of Interest, Discount Dog, Shooting Star, Break Song, Rockin' Train, The Mist Is Rising, Radio on the Firing Line, and Life at a Glance. And you've got Ralph Morman on vocals, who had sang. Ooh, it's gonna skip my mind. Okay, before there was Angel, Punky Meadows was in a band with Ralph as the vocalist. I can't remember the name of the band. Someone will tell me. Someone will tell me. You guys always know what it is. David Hull and Ronnie Stewart on drums here. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 albums left. So I better move because I know I'm taking a long time here. All right. Speed metal classic. This is Deliverance, Weapons of Our Warfare. Yeah, this is actually a test pressing, which is why you see these little labels loose in here. This was actually the first repressing on Rock's Records from, I don't know, back from 2014. I think this one came out originally. He did it on blue vinyl and black vinyl, and they both sold out. Then he did a second pressing the next year, 2015, on a blue-black mixture vinyl with different center labels. They had that was how you could tell, different labels, and I think it said second pressing on the insert or something like that. And that one sold out, and then a couple years later after that, it was released again by Retroactive Records. But in any case, this is the very first pressing. This is a test pressing of it. This is great speed metal. If you watched MTV back in when this came out, was what, 89, 90? I think this came out in 1990. This was actually in rotation on Headbangers Ball back then, and I remember one particular episode I saw with Lars Ulrich doing the MCing or VC or whatever they call him, video DJ. He mentioned this being one of his favorite songs, and it was the video for I think it was the video for this. What was it? Was it This Present Darkness? Or was it Weapons of Our Warfare? It might have been a title track. I don't know. I can't remember what the video was for. Yeah, it was Weapons of Our Warfare. So anyhow, great thrash metal, great speed metal, whatever you're gonna call it. I know the vocals for Jimmy Brown refers to the band as speed metal, and yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's not like, you know, it's not like real raw and guttural like a, you know, Destruction, Sodom, you know, Sepultura, that kind of thing. It's more melodic, like I don't know. To me, you can hear equal parts Queensryche and Metallica in their sounds. and some people will be like, yeah, I don't hear it, but that's kind of what I hear in there. You know, Agent Steel, Anthrax, Realm, Toxic, and that kind of range. Next up, this is I always describe it as having a new wave of British heavy metal sound. This is LIGHTFORCE, and I just hadn't pulled this one out in a while. I love this record. It's just so raw and guttural and so 80s metal. It's kind of late. It was released, I believe, in '88. Might have been even '87. This is a reissue on Soundmass, but it has that early Iron Maiden-ish sound. You know, Paul Di'Anno era Iron Maiden. It's got the punky vocalist, much like Paul Di'Anno. It's got Steve Rowe, who of course went on to Mortification, on bass, and his bass is definitely prominent in the sound. So yeah, definitely has that very early Iron Maiden kind of vibe to it. Not that they sound like a Maiden clone, but it has that vibe. You know, you could play it up against a band like Tank or Girl School, or Warfare. You know, that's the kind of vibe you got with LIGHTFORCE and Mystical Thieves. And I believe this was their last full-length album after they did a demo tape called Break the Curse, and then eventually Break the Curse and the band became Mortification. But LIGHTFORCE, Mystical Thieves. Third album from this classic metal band. This is Liege Lord. I love all three albums that they put out. Hard to pick a favorite, but I like all three of them. But this one was different because it had a new vocalist, James Camille, however you say his name, Camille, who went on to play with Annihilator and Overkill as well. Is the vocalist here, and he gave the band a different vibe. But man, this is a great record. Just straightforward heavy metal. Some might label it power metal these days. To me, it's just straightforward metal. Great stuff. Melodic, heavy, great guitar solos, great vocals, memorable songs. Just, you know, all the things I dug about 80s metal is in this album, Master Control, Liege Lord. This is one I just hadn't heard in a long time. Usually when I think about this band, I end up playing their first album because I really dig the kind of campy pomp vibe of that album. But this is their second album, and it has that similar vibe, but I just like the first album better. But this is Canadian Hounds. This is Putting on the Dog. So you've got what I assume is a prostitute in there with a bunch of passed out dogs laying all over the place on a silk bed. You know, like I said, very campy stuff. Yeah, it's just straightforward hard rock. I think their first album had a little more of a pomp, almost a sleazy feel. This one seems a little more almost pushing towards AOR. Not that it's, you know, it doesn't sound like Boston or Asia or anything like that, but still, it's just a little less. I don't know. I just don't like it quite as much as the first album. That's all I can really say. I like both of them, but again, I really think that the first album was just fantastic. Two more. Barry Goudreau. I pulled this one out. Hadn't heard it in a long time. Barry Goudreau is the sorry about the interruption there. Barry Goudreau was the guitar player, one of the songwriters for Boston. So this is definitely a Boston-esque album. I'm sorry I was interrupted right there. There was something happened loud in the house and I just got interrupted. But if you're into Boston, this could have been their third album because this came out 1980, I think it was, following up Don't Look Back, and a lot of the songs on here sound a lot like Boston. And there's another reason for that is because you've got Brad Delp on vocals, of course, vocalist for Boston, and you've even got what's his name, drummer Sid something or other on drums. So yeah, you've almost got Boston going on here. So if you're into that kind of Boston AOR 70s sound and you've never heard this Barry Goudreau album, I mean, it's not exactly like Boston, but sometimes it is exactly like Boston. Like I said, some of these songs could have been, you know, the third Boston album. So if you're into that sound and you've never heard the Barry Goudreau solo album, it's worth checking out. It really is. If you don't like Boston, then I wouldn't really recommend this one either. So, last one I'm going to get into here is Holy Moses, Queen of Siam. This is German thrash metal, just a fantastic release from them. Again, another one I never owned, and I just been spinning it quite a bit because it's something new and yet old. It's old but new to me, so I was really digging it. So there you go, Holy Moses. So that's it. Appreciate y'all watching. That's it. Look forward to your comments below. I always appreciate talking to y'all. So that's it. God bless. Stay strong.